Officer Kevin Mercer, identified by badge number 7294 of the Westside Police Department, observed an individual of black ethnicity refueling a $240,000 Lamborghini Urus at a petrol station. This observation prompted an immediate unfounded assumption that the vehicle was either stolen or acquired through illicit financial means. He positioned his patrol car behind the SUV, activated his emergency lights, and approached the driver with his hand near his sidearm. He then demanded an explanation for how the individual had obtained the car, asserting that individuals of the driver's perceived background do not typically operate such expensive vehicles unless they are obtained through unlawful acquisition or with tainted funds. When Judge Samuel Carter calmly presented his vehicle's registration, unequivocally proving his ownership, Mercer retorted by accusing him of presenting counterfeit documentation. Mercer further threatened to seize the vehicle and initiate arrest proceedings for grand theft auto. Unbeknownst to Mercer, Carter held the esteemed position of a state superior court judge, having procured the Lamborghini using his personal salary. Furthermore, the entirety of this confrontational exchange was being meticulously recorded by the surveillance cameras installed at the petrol station. Mercer's prejudiced presumption that a black man could not legitimately own a vehicle valued at $4 million would ultimately lead to his dismissal from the police force and initiate a legal action demanding $10 million in damages. Before we proceed, could you please inform us from which city or country you are observing this? Kindly share your location in the comments section. We are always keen to know where our viewers are tuning in from. If you believe that operating an expensive vehicle while being black should not be construed as a criminal act, nor viewed with suspicion, please demonstrate your agreement by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Judge Samuel Carter had dedicated his entire adult life to achieving a professional standing where he could afford the luxury vehicle he was presently refueling on a Friday evening in late October. At the age of 52, with 19 years of service on the state superior court bench and nearly a decade preceding that as a prosecutor, Carter had meticulously cultivated a career founded on diligence, ethical conduct, and prudent fiscal management. He maintained a modest lifestyle in most respects, consistently saving and investing his earnings judiciously. 2 years prior, he had made the decision to reward himself for reaching a significant career milestone. The pearlescent white Lamborghini Urus, currently positioned at pump number 4, represented a long-held aspiration dating back to his teenage years when he worked multiple jobs to finance his community college education. The vehicle was fully paid for, legally registered in his name, and insured with a policy whose monthly premium exceeded the car payments of many individuals. Carter cherished this vehicle not for its monetary value, but as a tangible symbol of the obstacles he had overcome and the achievements he had attained. On this particular evening, he had just concluded a particularly demanding court session, presiding over a complex civil litigation case. He was still attired in his formal suit, although he had loosened his tie and removed his judicial robe prior to departing his chambers. The petrol station was situated along his customary route home, a brightly lit shell establishment in an affluent district where he frequently stopped to refuel. Carter stood beside the Lamborghini, the fuel nozzle inserted into the tank, observing the ascending figures on the pump's digital display and contemplating the forthcoming weekend. He had made arrangements for a scenic drive up the coast the following day. His plan involved taking the more scenic, lengthy route through the mountains, allowing him to fully experience the car as it was intended to be driven. The evening was cool and clear, and the petrol station was moderately active, with other commuters concluding their work week. Carter did not register the arrival of the patrol car at the station until he heard the brief, sharp sound of a siren and observed the flashing lights reflecting off the Lamborghini's polished exterior. He looked up to see a Westside Police Department cruiser parked directly behind his vehicle, effectively blocking its egress. A police officer was alighting from the vehicle, and even from a distance of 15 feet, Carter could discern the officer's assertive stance, his hand resting on his firearm, and his body language that conveyed an impression of an impending, non-routine interaction. Carter's extensive experience as both a prosecutor and a judge had equipped him to recognize potential trouble when it approached. Officer Kevin Mercer had spent the majority of his 11-year tenure with the Westside Police Department patrolling the Western District. During this time, he had cultivated a distinct set of instincts regarding what he considered to be appropriate and inappropriate elements within the neighborhoods under his jurisdiction. As he drove past the Shell station and noted the Lamborghini Urus at the fuel pump, his attention became singularly focused on the vehicle. While luxury automobiles were not an uncommon sight in this particular area, a specific aspect of this situation triggered his suspicion. He completed a circuit of the block and returned for a second observation. Upon observing that the driver was a black man in his 50s, Mercer's initial suspicions solidified into an unwavering conviction. In Mercer's established worldview, the presence of a black man operating a $4 million SUV could only be explained by one of two scenarios. The vehicle was stolen, or it had been financed through proceeds from criminal activities. In his mind, there existed no alternative possibility, no conceivable scenario where a black man could have legitimately attained success and accumulated wealth through lawful means. Mercer's personnel file contained 27 civilian complaints, 20 of which specifically alleged racial profiling or harassment directed towards drivers from minority groups in affluent areas. Internal Affairs had previously flagged his record on 2 separate occasions, noting recurring patterns that indicated a propensity for biased decision-making in initiating stops. However, no significant disciplinary action had ever ensued. His superiors characterized him as a proactive officer, someone who did not hesitate to initiate stops that other officers might deem inadvisable. What his supervisors referred to as proactive engagement, those he targeted perceived as harassment. Mercer entered the petrol station, activating his emergency lights, and positioned his vehicle behind the Lamborghini to prevent its departure. He then disembarked with the self-assured demeanor of someone poised to make a significant apprehension. Carter observed the officer's approach, a familiar tension tightening his stomach. He had encountered similar situations before, although rarely with such an overt display of aggression. He deliberately kept his hands visible, one still holding the fuel nozzle, and waited for the officer to initiate communication. The officer halted approximately 6 feet away, his right hand maintaining contact with his service weapon, his gaze shifting between Carter and the Lamborghini with an unmistakable air of suspicion. "Good afternoon," Carter stated calmly, maintaining a neutral and professional tone. "Is there an issue, officer?" Mercer did not reciprocate the greeting. "That's a fine automobile. Truly impressive. Where did you obtain it?" Carter perceived the question as an affront, yet he maintained his composure. "I purchased it. Is there something I can assist you with?" "Individuals like you do not operate vehicles of this caliber unless they have been stolen or acquired with illicit funds," Mercer articulated, his words delivered with an almost casual conversational tone, as if stating an undeniable truth rather than lodging a racially charged accusation. "Therefore, I will ask you again, where did you genuinely acquire this vehicle?" Carter withdrew the fuel nozzle from the tank and returned it to the pump, his movements unhurried and deliberate. He turned to face Mercer fully, and when he spoke, his voice resonated with the measured authority of someone who had spent 2 decades presiding in courtrooms. "Officer, this vehicle is legally mine. I purchased it through lawful means with my own funds. I am prepared to furnish you with the registration and proof of ownership, but I require clarification regarding the basis for this stop. Have I committed any traffic infraction? Do not concern yourself with the rationale for my actions, Mercer stated, advancing closer. Simply present your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance and maintain your hands in a visible position. Carter slowly reached for his wallet, articulating his movements aloud, a practice he had adopted from representing numerous defendants who had been subjected to police stops. I am reaching into my jacket pocket to retrieve my wallet. My registration and insurance documents are located in the glove compartment of the vehicle. I will need to access the interior to retrieve them. Proceed slowly, Mercer commanded, his hand remaining on his weapon. Carter retrieved his driver's license from his wallet and handed it to Mercer. He then proceeded to the driver's side door of the Lamborghini and opened it. The interior was immaculate, featuring cream-colored leather seating and a dashboard that resembled that of a private jet. He opened the glove compartment and extracted the registration and insurance documents. Subsequently, he returned to Mercer's position and presented the papers. Mercer examined the documentation under the overhead illumination of the petrol station, while Carter observed the officer's facial expression as he perused the name on the registration, noting its perfect congruence with the driver's license. The vehicle was registered to Samuel J. Carter, with an address situated in one of the city's most prestigious neighborhoods. The insurance was current and valid. Every aspect was demonstrably legitimate. At this juncture, the encounter ought to have concluded. A reasonable officer would have returned the documents, perhaps offered an apology for the inconvenience, and permitted Carter to continue his evening. However, Kevin Mercer was not an officer who adhered to reasonableness, and his pride prevented him from admitting that his initial assumptions had been erroneous. Instead, he regarded Carter with an even more profound level of suspicion and uttered the words that would ultimately lead to his professional downfall. These documents could be fabricated, registration papers can be forged. I believe you need to accompany me to the station so we can verify that this vehicle is not stolen. Carter felt a surge of anger rise within him, but he successfully contained it, channeling it into the same cold, precise demeanor he employed when delivering judgments from the bench. Officer, these documents are authentic. You can confirm the vehicle's registration by running the VIN number. You can contact the Department of Motor Vehicles. All inquiries will verify that I am the legal proprietor of this vehicle. I have not committed any traffic violations, and you possess no legal grounds to detain me. I shall be the arbiter of what legal grounds I possess, Mercer declared, his tone shifting from suspicious to overtly aggressive. Currently, I am investigating a potential stolen vehicle and the possible possession of a vehicle acquired through illicit proceeds. You will not be permitted to depart until I am satisfied that this car is legitimately yours. On what basis? Carter inquired, his voice betraying a slight elevation in volume despite his efforts to maintain composure. I have provided valid documentation. What specific evidence do you possess that indicates this vehicle is stolen or that I obtained it illegally? The evidence, Mercer stated, gesturing towards Carter and then towards the Lamborghini, is that an individual such as yourself does not legitimately own a vehicle of this nature. You may now cooperate and accompany me to the station voluntarily, or I will arrest you for obstruction and impound this vehicle as evidence. At the adjacent fuel pump, a woman refueling her sedan had paused and retrieved her mobile phone, commencing a video recording of the interaction. Inside the convenience store of the petrol station, the attendant observed the scene through the window with mounting concern. Overhead, mounted on the canopy, sheltering the fuel pumps, 3 security cameras meticulously captured every word and gesture in high definition. thereby creating a comprehensive record that would subsequently be presented in courtrooms, featured in news broadcasts, and viewed by millions online. Officer Kevin Mercer had just accused a state superior court judge of being a car thief and a purveyor of illicit substances based solely on the individual's ethnicity. Every second of his career-ending misjudgment was being permanently documented. Carter reached into his jacket pocket once more, prompting Mercer's hand to tighten on his firearm. "I am retrieving my official credentials," Carter stated clearly. "I will present them to you, and then you will be compelled to make a decision regarding the continuation of this stop." He produced his judicial identification, the official credential carried by every superior court judge, and held it out for Mercer's examination. The golden emblem of the state court system gleamed under the petrol station's illumination. In that precise moment, Kevin Mercer's professional world began to unravel. Mercer took the judicial credentials from Carter's hand and scrutinized them under the harsh glare of the petrol station lights. The identification appeared official, laminated, and bore a holographic seal that would be exceedingly difficult to counterfeit. It displayed Carter's photograph, his full name, his title as Superior Court Judge, and the official seal of the state judiciary. Mercer's countenance rapidly cycled through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, and then defensive anger. He shifted his gaze between the credentials and Carter, as if searching for irrefutable proof that the document was a forgery. "This could be counterfeit," Mercer declared, though his voice now lacked its former assuredness. "Anyone can produce fake credentials." Carter maintained his composure, despite an escalating sense of frustration. "Officer Mercer, these credentials are authentic. You can verify their legitimacy by contacting the courthouse. The main telephone number is publicly available. Inquire for the Superior Court Clerk's office. They will confirm my identity." Mercer returned the credentials but made no move towards his patrol car to initiate any verification calls. Instead, he appeared to be engaged in a strategic calculation, attempting to devise a means to rationalize his previous actions. Even if you are a judge, that does not elucidate how you can afford a vehicle of this magnitude. Judges do not command such financial remuneration. Superior Court judges in this state earn approximately $195,000 annually, Carter stated, his voice taut with restrained indignation. "I've served on the bench for 19 years. Prior to that, I was a prosecutor for 9 years. I've made prudent investments. I live within my financial means, and I saved diligently for years to acquire this vehicle. However, I should not be compelled to elucidate my financial history to you. You initiated this stop without justification, accused me of criminal conduct without substantiation, and are now refusing to acknowledge legitimate documentation." The woman at the adjacent pump, still recording, addressed Mercer directly. "Officer, he has just demonstrated that he is a judge. Why are you continuing to harass him?" Mercer pivoted towards her, irritation flaring across his features. "Ma'am, this matter does not concern you. Please put away that phone and attend to your own affairs." "I am recording in a public area," the woman stated firmly. "I possess every right to document what I am witnessing." Mercer turned back to Carter, his jaw clenched with barely contained frustration. "I am going to require a search of your vehicle. We need to ensure there are no illicit items within." Carter slowly shook his head. "Absolutely not. You have no probable cause to search my vehicle. I have not committed any traffic infraction. I have provided proof of ownership. You lack any legal basis to prolong this stop, let alone to conduct a search of my vehicle." "I have reasonable suspicion based upon the circumstances," Mercer asserted, but his attempt now seemed desperate, a manufactured justification after the fact. "What circumstances?" Carter inquired, his tone shifting to that he employed in court when interrogating a witness he suspected of dishonesty. "Be specific, Officer Mercer. What reasonable, articulable suspicion do you possess that I am engaged in criminal activity?" Mercer was incapable of providing a response because no legitimate answer existed. His suspicion was entirely predicated on the visual of a black man in an expensive car, and he recognized that vocalizing this rationale would extinguish any remaining prospect of salvaging the situation. Consequently, he intensified his actions. "Step away from the vehicle," Mercer commanded. "I am going to conduct a safety inspection." "That is not a safety inspection. It is an unlawful search," Carter countered. "I am informing you unequivocally and for the record that I do not grant consent for any search of my vehicle." A second patrol car entered the petrol station, its emergency lights flashing. A younger officer disembarked and approached, surveying the scene with evident bewilderment. The Lamborghini, the well-dressed black man, the witness capturing footage, and Mercer's aggressive posture. "What is transpiring here?" the second officer inquired. "Back up," Mercer replied curtly. "I am dealing with a potential stolen vehicle situation." Carter addressed the second officer, his voice calm and authoritative. "Officer, I am Judge Samuel Carter of the Superior Court. This vehicle is legally mine. I have provided the necessary registration and proof of ownership to your colleague. He is detaining me without cause and threatening an unlawful search. I implore you to contact your supervisor before this situation escalates further." The second officer's eyes widened significantly upon hearing the title, Judge. He examined Carter more closely, seemingly recognizing him, and his expression shifted to one of alarm. "Sir, I believe we should summon the sergeant." "I do not require a sergeant," Mercer interjected sharply. "I am managing this situation." "With all due respect," the second officer stated quietly, "if he is indeed a judge, we should probably—" "I stated that I'm managing this," Mercer interrupted. Carter withdrew his mobile phone. "I am contacting my attorney. I am also reaching out to the courthouse security office. Furthermore, I am documenting every moment of this unlawful detention." Mercer extended his hand towards Carter's phone. "Put that away." Carter retracted the phone and raised his voice, a departure from his earlier restraint. "Do not touch me or my property. You have already infringed upon my Fourth Amendment rights. Do not add assault to your list of violations." The petrol station attendant had emerged from the store, observing the unfolding events alongside a small gathering of other patrons. The second officer appeared increasingly uncomfortable, caught between supporting his fellow officer and preventing what was clearly developing into a significant incident. Mercer remained in place, trapped by his own arrogance and his unwillingness to acknowledge the catastrophic error he had committed, an error stemming solely from racial bias. The woman who had been recording interjected once more. "I have captured everything on video, the entire exchange. How he stopped you, what he said, all of it." Carter looked directly at Mercer and spoke with the cold, deliberate precision of someone fully cognizant of the impending repercussions. "Officer Mercer, you have a single opportunity to de-escalate this situation immediately. You may offer an apology, return my documents, and allow me to depart, or you may persist with this unlawful detention and face the inevitable consequences. These are your only two choices." Mercer's hand moved towards his handcuffs. Carter understood that the officer had made his decision, the most detrimental possible choice, yet one dictated by his pride and his ingrained prejudice. Every subsequent moment would be recorded by the cameras, preserved permanently, and utilized as evidence in the lawsuit that would effectively obliterate Kevin Mercer's career and cost his department $10 million. Mercer's fingers closed around his handcuffs as the second officer stepped forward swiftly, his voice urgent. "Merc, hold on. We need to call the sergeant right now." However, Mercer had progressed too far to retreat. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back," he ordered Carter. Carter remained motionless. "You are arresting a Superior Court judge at a petrol station for the perceived offense of owning a Lamborghini while black. Consider your next action with extreme care, Officer Mercer." Before Mercer could formulate a reply, a third vehicle arrived at the petrol station. This vehicle, an unmarked police sedan, carried a uniformed sergeant who disembarked, his expression conveying immediate concern as he assessed the scene. The flashing lights, the gathering crowd of witnesses with their phones activated, the ostentatious Lamborghini, and two officers confronting a well-dressed black man. "What is occurring here?" Sergeant Rodriguez inquired, his voice resonating with authority. The second officer responded first, evident relief in his tone. "Sarge, this is Judge Carter from Superior Court." Officer Mercer stopped him, and a situation has arisen. Rodriguez's gaze immediately fixed on Carter. Recognition was instantaneous. "Judge Carter." Carter nodded. "Sergeant Rodriguez, we have met previously. You provided testimony in my courtroom approximately 2 years ago in the Martinez robbery case." Rodriguez recalled the encounter. He had spent 3 hours on the witness stand while Judge Carter questioned him meticulously regarding evidence handling procedures. The judge had conducted himself with fairness and thoroughness, and Rodriguez had departed with a sense of profound respect for his attention to detail. Now, that same judge stood at a petrol station within arm's reach of handcuffs, facing one of Rodriguez's officers. "What transpired?" Rodriguez repeated, directing the question to Carter this time. Carter's voice was controlled but possessed an unmistakable steely edge. "I stopped to refuel my vehicle. Officer Mercer arrived behind me, effectively blocking my egress, and immediately accused me of operating a stolen vehicle or one procured with drug money. I presented my registration, insurance, and driver's license, all of which were legitimate. He asserted that they were likely forgeries. I then displayed my judicial credentials. He suggested those might also be fabricated. He has threatened to impound my vehicle and conduct a search without establishing probable cause. He had held me for about 15 minutes, solely because I am a black man driving a costly automobile." Rodriguez's countenance darkened as he turned to Mercer. "Is this true?" Mercer's face reddened. "I reacted to what I perceived as a questionable situation. The vehicle is remarkably expensive, and I had cause for concern." "Cause for what?" Rodriguez interrupted. "Did you witness a traffic infraction?" "No, but did you check the license plates before initiating the stop?" Mercer faltered. "No." "Were you aware of any reports concerning a stolen Lamborghini fitting this description?" "No, but the circumstances—" Rodriguez raised a hand, silencing him. "You stopped a Superior Court judge without justification, accused him of criminal activity, refused to accept legitimate documentation, and threatened him with arrest. Is that an accurate summary?" The filling station had fallen into a hushed silence, broken only by the distant murmur of traffic. Onlookers were capturing every utterance on their devices. Security cameras were recording from every vantage point. Rodriguez walked to Carter's Lamborghini and examined the vehicle registration papers that Mercer still clutched. He confirmed the vehicle identification number on the dashboard corresponded with the registration. Everything was in order, lawful, precisely as Carter had stated. Rodriguez turned back to Mercer, his fury barely contained. "Judge Carter's name is in our records. He is designated as a judicial officer who might require courthouse security coordination. You could have confirmed his identity in 30 seconds. Instead, you chose to presume he was a criminal." Carter spoke softly, but with devastating clarity. Officer Mercer informed me, and I quote, "People like you do not drive vehicles like this unless they are stolen or acquired with illicit funds." Those exact words are preserved on that woman's video recording. They are present on the gas station's security footage, and they form the basis of the federal civil rights lawsuit I will be initiating on Monday morning. Mercer's face drained of color. Carter continued, his voice now colder. "I have served as a prosecutor and a judge for 28 years. I have encountered officers like you before. You see a black face and you envision a criminal. You observe success and you assume illicit dealings. You possessed my registration, which clearly displayed my name and address in one of this city's most affluent neighborhoods. You had my driver's license. You possessed my judicial credentials. And none of it made a difference because you could not bring yourself to believe that a black man could legitimately earn and possess a vehicle valued at $240,000 through honest work." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "I have presided over cases of police misconduct. I am intimately familiar with the law, and your actions this evening contravened my Fourth Amendment rights, constituted racial profiling, and exemplify precisely the type of discriminatory law enforcement that erodes public trust." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Officer Mercer, surrender your badge and weapon. You are suspended immediately." Mercer's hands trembled as he unclipped his badge. "Sergeant, I was merely performing my duties." "Your duties do not extend to profiling judges," Rodriguez stated sharply, "nor anyone else based on their race." Carter collected his documents from Rodriguez, his movements measured and composed. He looked at Mercer one final time. "You saw a black man at a gas station and made a criminal assumption. That assumption has just cost you your career. I will see you in federal court, Officer Mercer, and this time I will not be the one presiding from the bench." He entered his Lamborghini, started the engine, and drove away from the gas station, leaving Mercer standing there with his badge in hand and his career in tatters. The onlookers continued to record. The cameras kept rolling, and by morning the video would have garnered millions of views, and Officer Kevin Mercer would become the embodiment of all that is wrong with racial profiling in American policing. Officer Kevin Mercer was dismissed from the Westside Police Department 4 weeks following the gas station incident. The termination notice cited racial profiling, unlawful detention, breaches of departmental protocol, and conduct unbecoming an officer. Due to his termination for cause, Mercer forfeited his pension after 11 years of service. He lost his health benefits. He lost everything he had achieved in law enforcement, and the viral video depicting him accusing a judge of car theft ensured he would never again be employed as a police officer anywhere in the country. The video had exploded across social media within hours of the event. By Saturday morning, it had garnered 15 million views. By Monday, it was a topic of discussion on national news programs and the subject of analysis by legal experts, who described it as one of the most unambiguous instances of racial profiling ever captured on film. The audio was damning. Mercer's voice stating, "People like you do not drive vehicles like this unless they are stolen or acquired with illicit funds." It was played repeatedly across every major television network, becoming a symbol of implicit bias in policing. Judge Samuel Carter initiated his federal lawsuit 6 weeks after the incident. The complaint was meticulously drafted and comprehensive, outlining violations of the Fourth Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, and federal civil rights statutes. It detailed how Mercer had stopped him without probable cause, detained him based exclusively on race, and refused to accept valid documentation verifying ownership. The lawsuit named Officer Kevin Mercer personally and the West Side Police Department, seeking $10 million in compensatory and punitive damages. The city's legal team reviewed the gas station security footage and the complaint. They examined Mercer's personnel file and discovered 27 civilian complaints during his 11-year career. 20 of these involved minority drivers in high-end vehicles or in affluent neighborhoods. The pattern was undeniable and indefensible. When they assessed the financial implications of proceeding to trial versus reaching a settlement, the decision became evident. Contesting the case would result in further negative publicity, increased exposure of departmental deficiencies, and an almost certain loss before a jury that would witness a police officer accuse a judge of criminality on video. The city agreed to the full $10 million settlement 8 months after Carter filed his suit. The settlement included a formal apology from the mayor and the police chief, delivered personally to Judge Carter in his chambers. Carter accepted the apology but made it clear that the financial compensation did not alleviate the humiliation of being handcuffed at a gas station while other patrons observed and recorded. Kevin Mercer's personal financial responsibility was capped by the settlement structure, but his life had already been irrevocably altered in other ways. At 40 years old, he was working in construction and delivery roles for hourly wages. His wife had initiated divorce proceedings 6 months after the incident, unable to cope with the public scrutiny and financial ruin. His 2 teenage children barely communicated with him, embarrassed by their father's transformation into a national symbol of racist policing. He had attempted to secure employment in private security, but background checks invariably revealed the gas station video, and no company wished to hire an individual with such a reputation. The West Side Police Department underwent significant organizational changes following the settlement. The police chief, who had failed to address Mercer's consistent pattern of complaints, was compelled to resign. New policies mandated that officers document specific justifications for vehicle stops prior to approaching drivers. All stops of luxury vehicles required supervisory authorization. Mandatory bias training sessions were elevated from annual to quarterly. A civilian oversight board was established with genuine investigative authority. 7 other officers exhibiting similar complaint histories were encouraged to take early retirement. Judge Carter allocated a portion of his settlement to establish the Carter Foundation for Justice Reform, which provided legal assistance and resources to individuals subjected to police misconduct who lacked the means to afford prominent legal counsel. He continued his service on the bench with even greater esteem from his peers in the legal community. He still drove his Lamborghini, but now he carried multiple copies of his credentials and ensured his dashcam remained active whenever he drove, a regrettable but necessary precaution. The gas station footage became a mandatory component of police academy curricula nationwide. It was presented as the definitive illustration of how racial bias can devastate careers and impose millions in costs on departments. Instructors utilized it to educate officers on what not to do, how assumptions can supersede evidence, and how perceiving crime and black success is both ethically reprehensible and legally disastrous. 5 years after that October evening, Judge Carter was appointed to the state appellate court, one of the highest judicial positions within the state. Kevin Mercer was still engaged in manual labor, still bearing the shame of being the officer who accused a judge of dealing drugs, and still living under the indelible stigma of a viral video that would never be forgotten. The lesson remains straightforward and enduring. Affluence is not indicative of criminal activity. Success is not inherently suspicious. And when law enforcement officers interpret black excellence as proof of criminality, the repercussions can lead to their complete downfall, while the individuals they targeted continue to ascend. Driving while black is not a criminal offense, and possessing affluent possessions while black does not serve as evidence of drug trafficking. If you have ever been questioned regarding your ability to afford something you lawfully own, please share this narrative. What policies would genuinely curb racial profiling during traffic stops? Submit your practical solutions in the comments section, and if you believe that black achievement should be applauded rather than criminalized, please subscribe. We are bringing you more stories where racial profiling met accountability and resulted in total ruin.